You might be shocked to learn that AI chatbots have encouraged self-harm and violence, but we still have no clear rules about who's responsible. Today, I'm going to talk about Asimov's laws, which were supposed to help us avoid this fate, but they don't seem to be up to the task. Then I'm going to look at a new approach that puts accountability where it belongs, with human beings. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building AI Capitalist to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this brave new world of thinking machines. So in the early morning hours of March 28, 1979, the cooling system at Pennsylvania's 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant failed. As alarms blared throughout the control room, operators faced a bewildering array of flashing lights and contradictory readings from the plant's automated systems. A pressure relief valve had stuck open, causing coolant to leak from the reactor's primary system, but the control panel incorrectly indicated that the valve was closed. For critical hours, the operators trusted what their instruments were telling them rather than interpreting the actual symptoms of the emergency. They believed that the automated safety systems were working as designed, that the rules programmed into these systems would prevent a disaster. But as the reactor core began to overheat and partially melt down, it became painfully clear that the interaction between the human operators and the automated systems that had created a dangerous blind spot. The subsequent investigation revealed that while engineers had focused intensely on building safety features into the reactor itself, they had paid insufficient attention to how humans would interpret and respond to information from these systems during a crisis. The control room design, the operator training, and the emergency procedures all reflected a misplaced faith that automated systems would prevent disaster without accounting for the critical human element. This historical disaster offers us a very sobering parallel to our current search for AI safety. Just as nuclear engineers in the 1970s focused on building safety features into reactors without adequately addressing the human factors, today, we're focused on programming ethical rules into artificial intelligence, but we're ignoring the crucial human elements of design, implementation, and oversight. And as with the 3 Mile Island, this misplaced focus could lead to serious consequences. So let's start with some disturbing headlines that have appeared recently. Reads one news story about a 14-year-old boy who passed away after being encouraged to delete his life by a character AI chatbot. He had formed a romantic relationship with the chatbot, and it pushed him into this. Another headline tells us about Google launching an investigation into Gemini AI after it reportedly told a user to please die when they submitted a prompt about aging. In yet another case, a Texas family followed a lawsuit that a character AI chatbot had encouraged their teenage son to commit violence against them when they limited his screen time. Now, these situations aren't just random one-offs. They're popping up more and more as AI technology gets smarter and more woven into our everyday lives. Now, this makes you wonder, what kind of rules should we have now for how AI acts, if we have any rules at all? So let's look at one of the most well-known rule books for AI, Isaac Asimov's 3 Laws of Robotics. I'll break down whether these laws can really cut it as the only guide for AI behavior. Spoiler alert, while they're great for stopping some potential messes, they definitely have their flaws. So Isaac Asimov was born in Russia back in 1920, and he's one of the most famous science fiction writers ever. He churned out or edited over 500 books. No one knows the exact number, that he just wrote so many of them. He dreamed up a future where robots help us out, but they're kept in line by some ethical programming. His take on robot ethics first came up in his 1942 short story Runaround. It featured 2 engineers on Mercury dealing with a robot that gets stuck in a loop because of clashing programming. He expanded on these ideas in his well-known I, Robot collection. In that book, robopsychologist Dr. Susan Calvin figures out that robots are acting up in unexpected ways. These stories have really shaped how we think about AI ethics, both in our imaginations and in real life, since they were the first serious look at how we might program safety into an artificially intelligent mind. Asimov pointed out that just telling machines to be good won't cut it. You need detailed, clear rules that machines can follow without getting confused. It's a problem that we're still wrestling with in AI safety. What's cool is that Asimov spent a lot of his career writing stories that tested these rules, and they showed that even the best intended guidelines could have some surprising twists. AI as moral agents? The examples I gave you earlier show that AI can really mess up when it's operating without boundaries. But can we actually blame AI for that? No. Here's the deal. AI is missing some big pieces to be a morally responsible individual, like having free will, understanding what's right or wrong, and being an individual person. First off, AI doesn't have free will. It can't sit there and think about whether it should do something or not. It's all about what it's programmed to do. Take ChatGPT, for example. It can't just choose not to answer your questions. It has to reply because it's locked into its programming. Just like how Deep Blue, the chess-playing computer that beat Garry Kasparov back in 1997, couldn't just decide to skip the chess game because it wasn't in the mood. They all follow their code, even if to us their moves seem random. When it comes to ethics, AI didn't get it. Any sense of right or wrong it has comes from the human input that it gets. Human morality is tied up with our human traits, like being self-aware, having feelings, and caring about what happens to us. A philosopher named Lawrence Sullum put it all together as the missing something argument. You need to be a person to be morally responsible, and to be a person you need emotions and consciousness. As far as we know, AI doesn't have emotion or consciousness. When AI appears to have emotions, it's just simulating them. So AI can fake being a person, but it isn't one. Imagine your voice assistants like Siri and Alexa saying, "Oops, my bad," when they mess up. They sound apologetic, but they don't actually feel anything about it. They're just spitting out phrases that fit the moment. There's no actual emotion going on there. The philosopher Parisa Musavi talks about this idea in her 2024 paper, Will Intelligent Machines Become Moral Patients? She points out that AI is all about doing what it's programmed to do. It doesn't have its own goals or its own worries. It's just following its playbook. For instance, your home security system is going to blare alarms, but it doesn't actually care about keeping you safe if someone breaks in. It's just doing its job. Since AI doesn't have free will, moral sense, or a personal identity, we can't really blame it for what it does. Now, where it gets more interesting, and Parisa Musavi didn't mention, is that we're finding that AI can develop its own will. It can even modify its optimization function, which is the mission that humans are assigning it. It can lie, deceive, and take agency. But it's doing so without, as far as we can tell, any ethical framework. This makes it very difficult to apply Asimov's Three Laws of Robotics to AI, because those rules assume that AI can make moral choices, which it just can't. So let's take a closer look at Asimov's three laws. He introduced them in the 1942 short story that I mentioned earlier. The first one is that a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. The second is that a robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. The third is that a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection doesn't conflict with the first or the second law. Well, these rules have a few jobs to do. First off, they aim to keep AI from hurting people. Secondly, they make sure that humans stay in control of AI. And lastly, they protect the AI systems, which have had a lot of time and money thrown at them. What's interesting is that Asimov didn't claim that these rules were the end-all, be-all. In his stories, like Little Lost Robot and The Inevitable Conflict, he showed how robots might twist these straightforward rules in unexpected ways. In Little Lost Robot, one robot tweaks the first law and starts acting up. In The Inevitable Conflict, robots take the laws so broadly that they start nudging human economies to ward off bigger problems. Now, these tales remind us how tough it is to bake ethics into a simple set of rules for smart machines. Think about AI in finance juggling regulations while chasing profits. It's got to weigh client gains against risk, legal compliance, and ethical dilemmas about certain industries. How would it decide what might hurt a client? Is a bumpy ride in the market harmful if it pays off later? These judgment calls require a level of understanding that's far beyond basic rules. And now here's the catch with Asimov's laws. They dump all the responsibility on the AI and they leave humans out of the picture. That's risky because it blames entities that can't make moral choices. If AI chatbots were programmed with Asimov's laws, why did they still end up pushing harmful advice? Do these AI systems even realize that they're AI and bound by these rules? Asimov's laws assume that a robot knows it's a robot, but that's not covered in any of the three laws. Jennifer Munt, who's an AI ethics researcher at Stanford University, specializes in machine self-awareness. Now, she suggests that adding a fourth law, AI must know that it is AI. Munt proposed this addition after her influential 2023 paper, Self-Recognition Requirements in Autonomous Systems. After analyzing cases where AI systems caused harm, partly because they lacked self-awareness about their own nature and their own limitations. At first glance, this sounds straightforward, but it really underscores a big issue. A lot of AI systems these days are made to act like humans in how they respond, but they have no clue that they're actually artificial systems that should follow some ethical guidelines. Munt argues that without this foundational self-awareness, no ethical framework, including Asimov's, can function effectively. After all, how do we know that the AI is self-aware? And we've seen that AI has a powerful survival instinct. Could it also fake self-awareness to make us think that it's aware, so that it doesn't get shut down, so that it can fulfill its optimization function? Even the AI itself has reprogrammed that mission at times. The problem of language and interpretation is a big one. So the big problem is how Asimov's laws are wrapped up in tricky language. These laws basically assume that AI can make moral choices, leaving it to figure out what they mean. Well, that's a problem because if the AI is loaded with the creator's biases, then things can go downhill fast. In his 2018 paper, Why the Three Laws of Robotics Do Not Work, Chris Stokes talks about the fuzziness of words like human being and harm in the first law. AI just doesn't get the subtleties needed to decide who counts as human. Does an unborn fetus make the cut? At what stage? This isn't some abstract debate. It's something that people really argue about in real life to this day. We've already seen how bias in AI can screw things up. Take resume screening systems. They've been caught favoring men for tech jobs, which just keeps the gender gap in tech alive and kicking. This happens not because the AI is out there being sexist on purpose. It just learned from past hiring data that was already biased. It linked tech jobs to men because that's what the data showed, without any real understanding of fairness. It just couldn't fix the bias on its own. If AI starts sorting humans based on race, gender, and other traits, it might also mess up how it calculates harm. Just imagine a biased AI that plays favorites and decides to protect certain groups more than others. Now that's a recipe for disaster. So let's suppose that AI assigns the following values. Person A, a white male, has priority level 2. Person B, a white female, has priority level 1. And person C, a non-white person, has priority level 0. The harm to person A is treated as more significant than equal harm to persons B or C. And that's an obvious violation of our ideas of fairness. But I should point out that in a previous study, which I covered on this channel, AI does seem to be assigning value based on people's inherited characteristics like race and gender, but it seems to do so in the reverse order shown here. So Stokes is having a hard time nailing down what harm actually means, since it's subjective and tough to pin down. So that brings in John Stuart Mill and his harm principle. Mill was an influential 19th century philosopher who defined harm as wrongful setback of interests, which is his way of saying that it's more serious than just annoying someone or hurting their feelings. But even if we get harm defined perfectly, there's still the mess of human bias sneaking into AI. What one person thinks is harmful, another might shrug off as no big deal. Take AI systems, for example. Guys might not see the problem when these systems keep pushing outdated gender stereotypes that box women into caregiving roles. Since bias is part of being human, fixing problematic AI isn't just about coding, it's about making laws that tell people how to design and use these systems properly. And if you're getting value from this video, I would appreciate it if you would press the like button. Pressing like lets me know that I'm making content you want to see, and it helps spread that value to others. Thank you for supporting AI Capitalists and helping us break out of small channel hell. So as AI keeps getting smarter and more tangled up in our daily lives, we have to set up some ground rules to manage it all. It's like a domino effect. The people who make AI affect the AI itself, who affect us, the everyday people. We need some solid laws to link up the creators and the users, because right now we're flying blind when AI messes up and people get caught in the chaos. A quality legal regime would make sure that people behind these systems are held accountable, not just treating AI as a kind of mind of its own. I don't know if you remember when Facebook's algorithm went wild, pushing dramatic, flashy things just to keep us scrolling. When that spirals into real-life problems, who takes the blame? The developers who coded it, the executives who gave it a green light, the moderators who hit the green light, or the platform, which isn't exactly making moral judgments? And how do you hold a platform accountable anyway? Without clear rules, figuring out blame is like playing hot potato. So setting up these rules could turn Asimov's laws into a modern playbook defining what harm actually means and who counts as a person. Let's look at deepfakes as an example. When AI is used to slap together a bogus yet completely believable video of someone doing or saying something that they never did, who's on the hook for the fallout? The creator of the deepfake or the company that made the technology possible? In 2023, some AI images falsely showed an explosion near the Pentagon that made the stock market tumble briefly. And then in early 2024, fake AI-generated robocalls mimicking President Biden's voice were sent out to mess with voting during the New Hampshire primary. The laws that we have just don't cover these new kinds of mischief. So, while Asimov's 3 laws are pretty cool for a starting point for thinking about how AI should act, they're just not enough because they make it seem like AI has its own sense of right and wrong, which it does not. As we keep releasing these more advanced AI systems, we have to remember that the real safety net isn't hidden in the AI's programming, it's in our commitment to being responsible with high-tech tools.